Premier League is back, full effect. People, we are in week 2. This was actually meant to be done yesterday because I forgot the Nottingham Forest Sheffield United game was a Friday night kickoff as opposed to a midday kickoff, which I thought was happening obviously today. Hence why it's late. But we'll get into the roundup. So obviously Premier League kicked off last week. We'll start off at Turf Moor. Burnley 0, Manchester City 3. Obviously Vincent Kompany facing off against his former club. Pretty simple for Manchester City, to be quite honest. Erling Haaland on the score sheet twice. Sublime finish for the second goal as well. Thought Burnley played quite well actually, up until a certain point in that first half. And then Manchester City pretty much just turned it on as and when at will. Another injury to Kevin De Bruyne though. Looks set to be out for about 3 to 4 months, I'm hearing. So this should give the opportunity for either Phil Foden or Julian Alvarez to actually hold down a place in that Man City team at the moment. Tough to say whether Burnley are going to go down or not this season. For what I saw, I'm quite happy with what they sort of approached the game with. Very, very decent attacking outlets. But goals, I think, may be a bit of a hindrance to them. But again, one of those teams at home form will be sort of instrumental to obviously them staying in the league if they obviously do. On to the Emirates. Arsenal 2, Nottingham Forest 1. So this one went the way that I thought it would go, but not in the way of the scoreline. Thought Forest actually dug in quite well. Arsenal didn't look to be at their best. Declan Rice had a decent game, gave him a 6 out of 10 for performance. But I thought Nottingham Forest gave a really good account of themselves. Probably should have taken something from the game, to be quite honest, with the chances that they actually had. And they probably should have had a penalty as well. But yeah, formality result that one. Arsenal obviously coming out winners in that one as well. Nketiah on the score sheet again, as well as Saka with the left foot again for about 25 yards out. Great goal, to be fair. Yeah, went the way I thought it would go, and yeah, scoreline was a little bit on the low side, but a win for Arsenal nonetheless. Off to Bramall Lane, Sheffield United 0, Crystal Palace 1. And again, another one of those formality results. Sheffield United are absolutely going down this season for me. They're one of my favourites to do so. They'll probably end up right at the bottom. Yeah, not really much more to say on it, really. Edouard on the score sheet for Crystal Palace. Obviously, without Wilfried Zaha, the outlet on the left-hand side is a little bit light, but they do still have Eze, and the Elise has just signed a new contract there as well. So they've tied him down for another 4 years. Palace, decent start under Roy Hodgson, and I think obviously Palace will do well. Probably looking at top 10, top 12, that kind of area in the league. Off to the Vitality Stadium, Bournemouth 1, West Ham 1. I had this down as a draw, I think, last week, and obviously so it proved. Bournemouth are a tricky one this year, obviously without Gary O'Neill, who's obviously moved on to Wolverhampton. They still have that nucleus of a team that doesn't know when it's beat. They obviously had that all last season, and they've continued it this season. West Ham took the lead in that game, and Bournemouth did equalise through Dominic Solanke quite late on. I do envisage both of these teams finishing in the bottom half of the table this season. Bournemouth may be dragged into a relegation dogfight. West Ham, it would all depend on what they do with the Declan Rice money. I understand Lucas Paqueta's move to Manchester City is now on the ropes at the minute. I think he's being investigated with regards to betting charges at the minute, a la Ivan Toney. So keep a close eye on that one. But a decent draw for both, and obviously we'll go through their games this week. Off to the Amex next, Brighton 4, Luton Town 1. So this was a baptism of fire for Luton. It was never going to be easy. As much as I am going to be supporting them this season as my second team, they'll need to do a lot better than what they did last week. Brighton aren't one of them teams you go and play open, expansive football with. You need to be able to sort of cut off the open spaces that they create on the wings. They do a lot of overloads on both sides. So obviously down the side of Estupinan and Mitoma on the left-hand side, that's probably one of the most prominent duos in the Premier League at the moment with the way they get forwards, and they score goals for fun. As Luton found out, Luton scored their goal via a penalty, which wasn't actually a penalty, shouldn't have been given. I'm not sure what Lewis Dunk is supposed to do with his arms if he's sliding in like that. But Luton were going to have to do a lot better than what they did. They do need more recruits at the moment as well. Defensively, they are not there. Midfield is absolutely shocking and can't keep the ball. And they do have a striker that will put the ball back in the net in Morris, but he's going to need a lot of service. So it all depends on what Luton do over the course of the next couple of weeks while the transfer window is open. I do envisage Brighton to finish in the top half again. We'll probably go with top 7 again for them, as they are that good, literally. They are really, really good to watch. Goodison Park next, Everton 0, Fulham 1. I had this one down as a draw last week. Everton look like they're going to pick up from where they left off last season, and I think they'll be caught in a relegation dogfight again. Fulham again will be sort of top half, sort of mid-echelons of the league. Mitrovic is still there. I actually saw he played last week a little bit. I heard that he was sort of off and wanted to obviously be in Saudi Arabia. That's the reason why they got Raul Jimenez from Wolverhampton. But he was in the team last week and actually played, so I was a little bit confused with that one. But Fulham ended up winning 1-0. Decador Reed with the goal. Everton created a lot, had a few chances as well, but couldn't put them away. And then obviously when Fulham did break, they obviously made it pay and got the goal. So good 3 points for Fulham to start the season off with, and a clean sheet as well. Little bit of a shock, this one. This was the late kickoff at St James's Park. Newcastle 5, Aston Villa 1. So these are two of the teams that are going to be touted to sort of break the sort of top 4, top 6 model like they did last season. And, well, it just shows that how far Newcastle have come. Newcastle ended up winning the game 5-1. I actually put a bet on this, and I actually put a bet on 5-1 for Newcastle to win. I had like all the corners, I had all the cards. I had Isak to have a shot on target, Bruno Guimaraes have a shot on target. The only person that let me down was Yuri Tielemans. Needed a shot on target from him, didn't get it. So I missed out on 600 quid. That would have been on a £2 bet, I think it was. So thanks for that, Tielemans. I won't be better than you again anytime soon. So yeah, Newcastle 5, Aston Villa 1. Isak is a cold player, cold finisher. Really, really good. And they've got Callum Wilson in reserve as well, a striker who obviously knows where the goal is also. So if Isak isn't firing, Callum Wilson will be there on hand to obviously sort of knock balls in the back of the net, because that's what he does. And he seems quite happy to be sort of the impact sub that they need as well. Newcastle have got makings of a very good side there. Tonali, Guimaraes and Joe Linton make up a pretty decent midfield, if I'm being really honest. I do think they still need a holder in there, but they've got good balance, really, really good balance. And they've got outlets in Almiron and obviously Harvey Barnes if they needed to obviously get at teams a little bit more direct. So they could obviously knock the ball down the wing, and obviously both of those will be on it. But no, they are very, very decent to watch. Aston Villa were quite poor, got humbled very, very quickly. I know it's a new team. I know obviously they need their defenders to obviously learn each other. Tyrone Mings going off injured didn't help them. Obviously, Ezri Konsa had a shocking game as well. Pau Torres obviously made his debut. They'll get better, obviously. I think it's one of those freak results that you wouldn't necessarily expect. But anyone can get that when they go to Newcastle. I mean, it's one of those teams at the moment now that's flying at the minute. They got a habit of winning at the moment. Champions League football this year, so it's exciting times for them at the moment. And I do see them in the top 4 again, Newcastle, to be quite honest. It'll be a tough one because obviously we'll be in the mix as well. Obviously, no football for us. No football for Chelsea as well. Chelsea will probably be the ones to watch. In regards to teams that didn't make the top 4 last season, they'll probably want to make amends for that too. So I'd actually look to review that. Newcastle may not finish in the top 4 this season, to be quite honest. There could be other teams that will do it ahead of them, but we'll watch this space. On to Super Sunday, G-Tech Stadium we will start with. That was Brentford 2, Tottenham Hotspur, my beloved 2. Great game of football, back and forth, and I thought Spurs were brilliant in the second half. First half were a little bit choppy. Obviously, Christian Romero going off didn't help proceedings at all. Not to say Davinson Sanchez did a bad job. You could just see the backline is a little bit more solid with Christian Romero in it. But ended up being 2-2. Tottenham obviously taking the lead through Christian Romero, who then had to go off with a concussion. Maddison with the assist on that. Brentford then got a penalty. Son Heung-min siving down, I think it was Matthias Jensen. It was a little bit of a clip. but it was a penalty. He obviously did make contact, and obviously Mbermo scored the penalty, obviously with Ivan Toney being out at the moment as well. He took the reins and obviously scored. Johan Wissa made it 2-1 to Brentford. Just fell asleep at the back, Tottenham, to be quite honest. Rico Henry got around Emerson Royale, put a straight ball in. Wissa, no one marking him, scuffed shot, took a knock off Van der Ven and obviously wrong-footed Vicario before going into the net. And then Spurs equalised through Emerson Royale, of all people. 25-yard strike, grass cutter, really, really nice, bottom corner. And then second half, Tottenham completely bossed the game. Completely bossed it, but couldn't find that goal. Richarlison had a couple of chances, as did Kulusevski. Son had a really, really good chance that he'd usually put away back end of that half as well, but keeper saved it. Looking forward to what Spurs do next, obviously, post Harry Kane, and obviously Harry Kane did score for Bayern Munich yesterday as well, in their win over Hertha Berlin, 4-0, I believe that was. Was it Hertha Berlin? I think it might have been 4-0 Hertha Berlin. Might not have been, actually, but they did win 4-0 away from home. I think it was Hertha. So yeah, 2-2, and obviously Spurs will be on the late kickoff today versus Manchester United, which obviously we'll go into in a moment. Stamford Bridge, Chelsea won, Liverpool won. And Liverpool have signed Endo from Leverkusen, 30-year-old holding midfielder, to complement their midfield currently. I don't think he's the right signing. Obviously, Caicedo and Lavia have both decided to join Chelsea, which helps Chelsea dramatically, because now Chelsea are going to be stupidly powerful in the middle of the park. Problem with Chelsea is that they don't score enough goals. Whether Jackson's the man to do that, I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, you've got Raheem Sterling still there, who doesn't necessarily hit the heights he was hitting at Man City. Mudryk, who hasn't really got going at the moment. So it's tough to see where Chelsea get their goals from. On the other hand, with regards to Liverpool, they've got goals in abundance, but their problem is obviously in the midfield, and I'm not sure Endo would be the guy to fill that void of what it is that they need. They will have to sign another midfielder in the next couple of years, you'd think. But decent game for what it was, 1-1. Liverpool taking the lead through Luis Diaz with a sumptuous ball from Salah as well. What a ball that was. And obviously Luis Diaz finishing it off. Obviously Chelsea equalised through Disasi, the new centre-back that they've got. Disasi. Really, really scruffy finish for a centre back, but you got to be in there to obviously score, and obviously in there is what he was, and he got the goal to draw it out with Liverpool. Chelsea probably should have won the game based on the chances they had. Ben Chilwell had a goal chalked off for offside as well. Man United won, Wolverhampton 0. That was the Monday Night Football from Old Trafford. Little bit of a shock, that one, to be quite honest. I thought Wolverhampton played exceptionally well and probably should have won the game, the amount of chances they had. United's midfield was non-existent. Cunha was the man of the match for me, based on the fact that every time he picked up the ball, he'd run at their midfield, literally get through it with about 3 to 4 strides, and obviously pick the right ball. Problem with Wolves is that they can't finish. They don't have a striker that put the ball in the back of the net. And I promise you, if Man United come to Spurs today and play that way, they're getting absolutely splattered all over the pitch, and that's a promise. So they would need to play a lot better than what they did. But Wolverhampton showed a good account of themselves. Really, really decent football from Gary O'Neill's men. They need to find a goal scorer ASAP. Man United, again, weren't great, but got the win that they need. They usually tend to grind out games. And a goal from Rafa Varane helped my fantasy football team as well. So I appreciate it on that. So on to this weekend's games. Obviously, there was a game last night. I would have had Nottingham Forest to beat Sheffield United anyway. And so it proved. Nottingham Forest ended up 2-1 winners against Sheffield United last night. Chris Wood getting the winning goal after coming on as a late sub for Taiwo Awoniyi. He got the first goal for Nottingham Forest. So Forest are off the mark with regards to 3 points. Sheffield United obviously losing 2-2 and sit rock bottom of the Premier League, which I think is where they'll stay all season. Kenilworth Road was supposed to host Luton versus Burnley today, but obviously Luton is not ready, so that's a postponement at the moment. So that game will be played later on in the season. Anfield, Liverpool versus Bournemouth. So obviously last season it ended 9-0 to Liverpool, and that effectively lost the job of the Burnley manager. At the time, I can't remember who, Bournemouth manager at the time, which would have been Scott Parker before Gary O'Neill took over. Don't see it being a 9-0 this year, but I do see 3-0 Liverpool. Just think they're too strong. Anfield, first game of the season. Fans would be up for it. Bournemouth do play a lot of good things, so I wouldn't be surprised if Bournemouth did nick a goal. But I do see a Liverpool whitewash here. I'm going Liverpool 3-0. Wolverhampton versus Brighton. That is from Molyneux. I've gone for a Brighton away win here, just based on the fact that Wolves don't know where the goal is. Brighton obviously do score goals at will and are very, very good defensively. I think Brighton probably had one of the best away records last season as well, based on obviously everyone else that sort of finished above them. They were up there, I think, in the top 6 with regards to their away performances, and I don't see that changing today. I will go with a Brighton 2-1 win. Fulham versus Brentford from Craven Cottage. That's a nice West London derby for you. I've gone with a Fulham win there. Brentford looked a bit shaky last week with regards to the defence, and obviously Fulham being at home, Craven Cottage, I do expect both teams to score in this one. I just expect Fulham to score a bit more. I'm going to go with a 3-1 win to Fulham and probably go with a Jimenez goal in that game as well. There's 2 late kickoffs today. You've got Tottenham versus Man United from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at 5:30. I think it's going to end up a Tottenham win. I'm going to go with a Tottenham 2-1 win, based on the fact that the midfield is better. United don't seem to have that other midfielder to obviously partner Casemiro in the middle. And like I said before, if Man United do come with that same setup they did against Wolverhampton on Monday, Tottenham are a better team than Wolves, and Tottenham will punish them. For that reason, I'm going to go with the Spurs 3-1 win. Later on today, you've got Manchester City and Newcastle. That is from the Etihad. Pep Guardiola wasn't really happy about that fixture being played, obviously, because they won the Super Cup on Wednesday. He thinks the turnaround is a little bit too soon for them. I do still think Man City will win this game. Again, another game where I think both teams will score. Newcastle absolutely on fire at the moment, but I do see Man City coming out of this one, and I think they'll win it 2-1. Haaland to be on the score sheet for me on this one, I believe, and I think Isak might actually score for Newcastle as well. Then we go on to Super Sunday. We've got Aston Villa versus Everton live from Villa Park. Everton, I don't think have a hope in hell on this one, I'm going to be honest. I think Aston Villa run out riot winners on this one. We'll go 3-0 Aston Villa on this one. Everton can't seem to defend at the moment. West Ham versus Chelsea. That's live from the London Stadium. Chelsea, I've gone for a 2-1 win here. I think this will ignite Chelsea's season. Obviously, the new signings of Caicedo and Lavia are massive. It's going to be a midfield dominant game from Chelsea. I don't think West Ham have enough about them. Obviously, losing Declan Rice as well. And I do believe Chelsea run out winners here 2-1. And then we go Monday Night Football, Selhurst Park. A horrible, horrible, horrible stadium to go to on an evening game. Crystal Palace versus Arsenal. I will go for an Arsenal win based on the fact that Arsenal tend to have a decent record there. But I would not be surprised if Crystal Palace turn them over, especially under the lights there. It's one of those stadiums that once the crowd are into it, very, very difficult to play under. And because the crowd is so close to the pitch, they're on top of you. Could end up being a hindrance for Arsenal. I am hoping for a Palace win, of course, but I do think Arsenal will probably scrape it 1-0. But I wouldn't be surprised if Crystal Palace turned them over 2-0. That's the roundup for this week. I'll do another video next week, of course, with regards to the performances and obviously results this week, and then we'll get into the fixtures next week and do a roundup of them as well. But try to enjoy your day today, guys. Try to enjoy your weekend, and I'll speak to you next week.